Hey everybody, welcome to another Sunday live stream. Today we're talking about meds. You might say, hey, we talk about meds fairly often. Yep, everybody gets sick fish from time to time, and there's a lot of confusion, and it doesn't go away. 10 years in the business on YouTube, still the same problems. But we're here to help. So, the med trio, popular. We sell a lot of it, and for those of you that don't know, and to keep this little segment complete, that would be Hikari Ikex, Fritz Paracleanse, and Fritz Maricin, right? So you get an antibiotic, you get a dewormer, and you get an antifungal slash parasitic external agent. Now, we personally in the store use them as a trio. We dose all of them right when we get big batches of fish. They come in, and we're dealing with such numbers that, of course, some are going to get sick, right? And so we dose one dose of each med the first day, and we let it sit. And when we're letting it sit, we're observing the fish every day. That's the most important part, is observing and seeing if something was to crop up. The minute something did crop up, we will change tactics. And the tactic then becomes whatever is present, whether it's ick, fin rot, anchorworm, another disease, velvet. We then will pivot from the trio to a specific med to treat that illness. Now, where a lot of people are going wrong is they'll have a disease. They might even identify it. They might go, my fish has mouth rot. And then too often they use the trio. And that's not the way to use it, actually. It's not that it won't work, it's that it's not most optimal. And so there's a subtle difference there that I think people are missing. One dose of each as a preventative and holding stuff off from shipping new fish to you. Maybe they got way too cold in the car. Like when you know there's a high likelihood these things are going to be sick, that is different than, okay, now I have 2 days in my care, right? It's been 2 days, now they outbreak, or maybe they've been in your care for 2 years and now your tank gets sick and then you hit them with the trio. That's not what we recommend. We recommend diagnosing and then treating per illness. Now, if you really can't figure it out, then maybe you're going to use a med trio, but I see probably a couple times a week, I've got ick, so I treat it with the med trio. That is not the correct response. The correct response is ick-X. Treat ick-X, you water change the next day, you treat ick-X, you water change the next day, ick-X, you keep doing that until you get rid of the ick, right? And then you could treat for other stuff if you needed to. So I also want to talk about if I was just a hobbyist, right? In some of those scenarios. So in my personal fish room, no longer am I really bringing in a lot of big groups of fish, right? Like, oh, here's 600 cardinal tetras, anything like that. It's mostly like I bought fish for our tank that's going in the living room. It was 25 glass catfish, which that is kind of a lot. 25, or no, it's 18 glass cats, 25 hatchet fish, and a pair of killies. Now, did I come home and instantly hit them with the med trio? I did not, because I observed the fish in the pet stores. I really put my eye to them and looked at them and really, even before I invested about $300, really looked at them. And I said, I think these are healthy. I'm going to bring them home. I then brought them home. I put them in the tank. It's late at night. I do nothing. The next day, I come in and I really put my eye to them. I'm looking at them, really looking. Did they suffer any in the journey? Because the journey was a 5-hour trip back from Portland. And I'm going, nope, they're still looking real good. Okay, I'm going to feed them. Let's see how they respond to eating. I want to gain information, right? So I put some food in there and they're eating really well. That's another sign. Okay, they look to be doing well. They're eating well. Maybe they are doing well. I do that again the next day and the next day. And pretty soon it's been about a week and they're all looking really good. And then I lost one hatchet fish out of nowhere. It was just dead on the ground. That's weird. But I didn't do anything. I kept feeding, kept observing. A couple more days go by. No more deaths or anything. Maybe just one, I couldn't identify what was wrong. It didn't show any symptoms. I don't know why that one died. Didn't jump to conclusions. So now it's been almost 2 weeks. I'm a guy that can quarantine for months and months and months, so I'm not in a rush. It's been almost 2 weeks, and I go, okay, well, they look to be stable and doing well. I want to make sure that they don't have internal parasites. I then treat it with ParaCleanse. I put in 1 dose, I let that sit, and that's what I've done. Now I'm in a phase of actually waiting 2 weeks. So I dosed ParaCleanse once, now I've waited 2 weeks, and I'll be dosing ParaCleanse again, because when it comes to internal tapeworms, when we use meds, we can only get the ones that are alive. So we kill off all those, but every day, internal tapeworms are laying eggs inside the fish. And the medicine, the ParaCleanse that we use, can't attack those eggs. It takes up to 2 weeks for them to hatch. So we wait 2 weeks and we treat again. So we have to break the life cycle. That's what we did the first time. We killed the adult worms inside the fish. And then wave 2's coming down the road. We wait, we let those hatch out into juveniles. If we wait way too long, they become adults again. So we wait till they hatch out, we treat them. Now, if you really wanted to be extra careful, you do the treatment, you wait 2 weeks, you do the treatment, you wait 2 weeks, you do the treatment. That has like a 98, 99% success rate. Now, assuming I never got ick and I didn't see any fin issues or any other illnesses, I consider this fish to be pretty darn clean. Now it could go in a display tank, right? So that's how I would handle it if I brought fish home and I think they're doing healthy. Now let's pretend that I brought these fish home and day 2, there's illness, right? So it was late at night, I put them away. Day 2, I go to feed and I'm looking at them, I'm going, ooh, yeah, that one, it's got a speck on it. Maybe that's the start of ick. This one over here, oh, it's got some mouth fungus. So if I had one speck of ick and I had mouth fungus, I'd go, okay, I'm going to treat this for mouth fungus. Because one cyst on a fish doesn't necessarily mean ick, but mouth fungus, pretty apparent, usually. And in that instance, we use ICX, which you're going, wait, why would you use ICX on mouth fungus? Well, ICX is very good at fungus infections. And then I would also use Maricin. Maricin's going to fight off the bacterial part of that infection. So when a mouth gets infected, there's all the cotton. Usually it's inflamed and red, and when you kill that fungus, you leave a big open wound, and you don't want that to get the next illness and get infected. So I would treat with 1 dose of Maricin and 1 dose of ICX, and I would observe for 3 or 4 days. Would I be feeding the tank in that instance? Yeah, I probably would, because most of the other fish didn't have it, and I'd be feeding lightly though. I'm not looking to feed a ton, because when you do use antibiotics, if it's a newly established tank or you've upset the balance, you can disrupt bacteria. Now, so imagine you have a tank that maybe is sitting dormant for 3 months and then you bought fish. The bacteria colony isn't as robust there, and some Maricin may disrupt some of it. In my tanks, because I quarantine fish and I do this fairly regularly, the bacteria that I have don't seem to act detrimental to it. But we have seen people where they're new to the hobby or new tank syndrome, basically, and they go in and they nuke it with a bunch of meds, and then they go, hey, my water's cloudy. And that's one of the reasons why I recommend not feeding. Now, in the store for us, it's different, right? So when we say feed lightly, so let's say I have those 18 glass cats, I've got 25 hatchet fish, and a pair of killies. When I'm feeding lightly, that might be, okay, here's 1 thing of bloodworms. At the store, though, if there's 600 cardinal tetras, 1 cube of bloodworms, I may as well not even feed. That's going to feed like 40 of the 600. So then it becomes, how much load do I have to put into this tank to actually get a light feeding? And that might be 10 cubes of bloodworms. Can the tank handle that with all the meds? The other thing that I think that people are missing, because they're not doing critical thinking, they're going, I read how to cure this, I'm going to follow these directions, and it's going to be cured. And for the most part, that's true. One of the reasons I don't like to feed very heavy, or not at all, is because you don't know what's coming next. So in this scenario where I brought the fish back from Portland, it's day 2, they've got mouth rot, at least one of them does, and 1 speck of ick. And I treat those meds. What if on day 4, now ick is really bad, and bacterial infections are really bad, and this is going on, and they won't eat? I might have to do more intensive meds. And if I have to switch to a med that would kill beneficial bacteria, I'm going to be really happy that I haven't been loading up these fish to keep releasing ammonia, urea basically, when that scenario happens. So when we have a sick fish, we're already hedging to make it the best outcome by not feeding very heavy. People are often very scared of fish starving to death, but you should be equally afraid of too much ammonia or getting them constipated or something like that. And so what I really wanted to touch on here is there's no one absolute best method. If that really existed, it would be common knowledge for everybody. And even something as common as ick, where most people have experienced it, there's about 10 different ways that people would die on a hill defending. That we all treat it differently, we all have success, everybody else is wrong. But the reality is there's a lot of ways to get to where we're going. And so the med trio is the foundation, and you can change it based on your needs. So if you're not going to be able to sleep for 3 days because you didn't feed your fish, well, in your med trio, you have to build your program like it's going to keep you up at night, and you're going to have to feed. Feed lightly. If that, now you can sleep, right? And every fish transaction, there will be different information. Did it get shipped in from Twin City Guppies? Did it get shipped in from Aquahuna? Did you buy it from a fish store 5 hours away like I did? Did you buy it from a local breeder? Did you buy it straight from a wholesaler? Did you buy it from Petco and PetSmart and the chain stores? Did you, get it from a neighbor? All of these things, you need to take that information and go, okay, well, what are the odds? We need to be careful and not go, well, a store, of course, would have healthy fish. I never assume a fish is healthy. I think the most important parts are observing and having the meds on hand. That's, one of the big letdowns that people run into is they go, oh yeah, I'll watch my fish, we'll see how they do. You identify the illness, and then you have to wait for shipping. And even though we ship incredibly fast, and someone used a term I like, that we had great shipping standards, I think that's true. We do have great shipping standards, but even 2 days, right? Which would be fast. Even 2 days is 2 more days of growth in illness. And why would we willingly have that if we could prevent it? And so having the meds on hand prevents that lag, right? It gives you the confidence to buy stuff because you know you can treat it. And then you also don't walk into the trap, which I see way too often. They go, oh my gosh, my fish has this illness. I don't have the right med. I'll go to my local fish store. I'll buy a different med. And then I'll ask in the Facebook group, will this different med work? I've already dosed it. The landslide of people come in and probably say, yes, maybe. No, it didn't work for me. It worked for my grandma. Then didn't work for my grandpa. And you're kind of just more confused. Then a day later, you're like, I should really just order the med that Aquarium Co-op knows works. Now you're 3 days out. Now you're asking questions. Well, how much of a water change should I do? It's much worse now. How do I get the old med out? Will it cause conflicts with the new med? And those are met from us with, we can't guarantee it. You're using a med we don't know. Maybe you're using ick extinguisher. We have no idea how ick extinguisher reacts with Hikari Ikex. So we have to tell you, I don't know. A large water change and you're probably okay, but your fish are also 3 days weaker. There's way more ick cysts, right? They may have stopped eating, so they're 3 days longer without nutrition. You may have cranked up the heat. We don't crank up the heat, by the way. I watch people do this, and the reason we're talking about this, I saw someone talking about the Med Trio in the Facebook group right before I went live. And so one of the reasons I don't crank up the temperature, even though high temperatures are known to combat some strains of ick, there's more than one, by the way, depending on the country of origin. When you raise that temperature and you make it at that 82, 85 degree thing and you start killing off some of the ick, you also might be accelerating other diseases. So the hotter that you make the temperature, the faster bacteria spreads, right? It reproduces faster. The faster the fish's metabolism is going, right? So now it wants to eat more. The more agitated fish are getting, something like angelfish, right? You make them really hot, they want to breed, they want to fight. Same with African cichlids and a bunch of other types of cichlids. And so we might do more harm elevating the temperature, especially when it comes to cool water fish, right, than good. And so that's why we don't do it, because we've found we can just treat it with thick-X. We don't need to elevate the temperature. Will it speed up how fast we treat it? Yes, but it speeds everything up. And the problem is most hobbyists we find aren't good enough at identifying all the diseases. And so it's kind of like someone's sick and you need to get them to the hospital. And your answer is, I'll drive there as fast as possible. Foot to the floor, peeling out the whole way. And half the time, you're just going to get in a wreck on the way to the hospital. You've actually caused more damage and more injuries than if you had safely gotten to the hospital and then were able to treat it appropriately. And so, you know, I stress it all the time, and because it makes it so much easier when you do run into a problem. Have the meds on hand if you can get them. If you can't get them, start building your own process, right? So, oh, I'm in Canada. Oh, I'm in the UK. Oh, I'm in Africa. Oh, I'm in Europe. Great. You have access to salt, right? You have access probably to nutrition, like Vitacal. I'm trying to think of a nutritional supplement for food, right? But you can still go, okay, well, yeah, maybe I've got this line of meds. Maybe that makes sense in this country. And you can start asking local pet stores before you have a problem. This is what I think is so key and people aren't doing. Imagine you don't have any illness and you go to a new pet store. Why not ask them, hey, what's your guys' favorite medicine for fighting ick? And they go, oh, well, it's this product right here. And you go, oh, okay, that's interesting. Let me look at it. Okay, thanks. Thanks for the info. I don't have ick right now, but if I do, it's a consideration. Then you ask the next pet store, and you ask the next pet store, and you ask the next pet store. And if all of them say, oh, it's Ick Eliminator 2296, well, then you go, hey, maybe I should have some of that Ick Eliminator 2296 on hand, right? And now you can at least beat that. And then you could spend the next 2 months going, hey, what would you do for cottonmouth, right? And you could find a med. What would you do for this? What would you do for that, right? You can also see sick fish in the store. Hey, what are you doing to treat that over there? Oh, we use, right? Sometimes they're going to give you an answer and say, oh, we're using this med that you have to get from maybe pharmacy, a vet or a pharmacy. And you go, oh, darn. What would you use if you couldn't use that, right? Being prepared is very important. Like when we go on vacation or out of town, we leave a note on the fridge. Who is our vet for our dogs, right? We try to prepare. Who is the closest emergency vet if a 911 emergency for our dogs was to happen? Here's the closest one. We try and put these things in place so that when the problem arises, there's the minimal amount of what should I do, right? You're probably doing that with kids. You might be doing it with elderly parents. It's no different. We should be doing it for our fish. What is our action plan? What's your action plan? Imagine your fish gets sick and you're out of town and you have someone feeding your fish. Do you have at least the meds on hand to, go, okay, just put in X amount of salt. We'll be home in 4 days. That'll probably work, right? Or drop this med in. I'll be home in 4 days. That'll help. Or is it, I got nothing. Let's hope they don't all die. There's no one to take out bodies. There's no one to do the water change. There's no one to do this and that. So the quarantine trio, while very powerful, it doesn't have to be followed the same way each time. You need to develop what is going to work for the way you want to handle fish. We're just giving you the tools of meds we found that work really well. There are other meds that work well. We just don't have the experience with them, right? And the problem is, if there's 1,000 different medications out there and 100 of them are good. That might be too many, but let's say 100 of them are good. How do you know? You got to test them. And we stopped testing when we found ones that worked really, really well. So, do I have experience using the med trio with dwarf frogs? Nope, we don't. We try to only talk about things we have lots of experience with. Have I ever used the med trio? Have customers ever used the med trio with dwarf frogs? Yes. Am I confident enough in the responses I've gotten to tell the whole internet this is the remedy? No, I'm not. Just like I'm not with my turtles. If I haven't done it a whole bunch, I don't want people to quote me saying, Corey said, Aquarium Co-op said. And that's why my language is, this is what we do. Just because we do something doesn't make it right or wrong, right? So just because I like to eat tacos and I'm overweight doesn't mean everybody should be eating tacos all the time. It's just what we do. Makes it a true statement. If you say, I do this, right or wrong, it's a statement, I've made it, right? So develop your own battle plan. Now, you could ask me, Corey, what would you do if you had African dwarf frogs and they were presenting with fungal infection? I would say, oh yeah, I'd put them into a quarantine tank and I would treat them with Maricin and Icex. What if they died, Corey? I'd say, yeah, what if we do nothing and they die? I look at aquariums as an experiment. There are going to be casualties. My whole goal is to try to prevent the next casualty, right? So if I have a fish or frog or whatever in front of me, my goal is to prevent that one. I'm going to try. I have failed. I now have, let's say I kill that African dwarf frog. I put that in the column of like, ooh, that didn't work out so hot. I wonder if the fish or the animal was too far gone or if it was the meds. Now let's say a year and a half later, I've got an African dwarf frog at my house and it's sick again. Whew, let me Google. I don't know. I haven't really found any other good information. Maybe I'll try this again, but this time I'm going to try just the Maricin. Oh, wow, it cured it, but didn't die. Okay. Now I have one in the live, one in the death column. 5 years down the road, I've got ill dwarf frogs again somehow, because I'm a madman and I just love dwarf frogs. Now, let's say there's 3 of them that got the mouth fungus or the fungus on their body. I might go, ooh, let me split these up. I'm going to try one with just Maricin and one with Maricin and Icex and one with just Icex. And then that data will then apply. And now I've just started scratching the surface of maybe being able to figure out what would work. Now, you might hear that and go, but that's so unlikely. It's so unlikely for you to have that same illness that many times, and who's got 6 or 7 years to figure it out? And the answer is, nobody does. That's why we don't have the answer. And so that's why I don't come around going, hey, just do this. But if I have a lot of experience, like I've done the med trio 1 billion times with shrimp, doesn't seem to affect them. 1 billion times with plants, doesn't seem to be a problem. 1 billion times with all the fish that we sell in the store, doesn't seem to be a problem. Now, it's not that there could never be a problem, right? Most of us in our lives take penicillin. But, 1 out of however many tens of thousands of people will be allergic to it and will die, right? So there's still going to be, even when you have best practices, maybe it's cancer, right? We look at cancer patients and we go, here's the treatment plan. It works 60% of the time, or it works 80% of the time, whatever it is. There's still those times it doesn't work. Medicine is not a perfected thing. And so at best, we're doing a little bit of guessing, educated guessing, hoping all the meds are in date, not expired, and they didn't get exposed to anything we weren't thinking about. We hope we're not making a mistake. Someone the other day was using the med trio because they had sick fish and they were running a UV sterilizer, rendering the medications useless. They didn't know that. Everyone's got to learn. And so we hope that following the steps will equal the outcome we desire. It doesn't guarantee it, but the only thing I can guarantee is that if you really study the fish, you will learn something. You will learn how to kill them, or you will learn how to cure them. One of the two. And that knowledge is useful over a career of fish keeping. And each time you will assess it. How will I attack this problem? I think it's this. I know this information, and I think this outcome based on my previous results. If you've never done it before, you're just a student. You're going to go, I'm going to try this. We're going to see what happens, right? And so this is why you get things on the internet like, well, don't buy a bunch of fish at one time, because it's much better to learn, right? Learn with 3 fish than 300 fish. Now that's an extreme example, but maybe you were going to buy 18 neon tetras, and instead the store talked you into, how about just 6 to start? Because you're new to the hobby, right? Your tank might be new. You might be new. A lot of things need to happen. So, all right. I was very disappointed when I went to a big box store yesterday and saw they had a large outbreak of planaria. I was told it was isolated to a single tank, but their tanks are one single system. I wouldn't even think twice about that. Planaria is in every tank of every store you've ever been to, and I don't see them as detrimental. My guppies will eat them. Most fish will eat them. There's some evidence they're predatory slightly toward shrimp. That being said, in my tanks, I probably have a pound of planaria and 20 pounds of shrimp, and I never see any detriment of like, well, every year this shrimp tank makes $1,000 for the store, and yes, there's planaria. Maybe I would have made 1,100. Maybe. But, I don't go around using meds to get rid of them or anything like that, because I believe that an ecosystem handles it all. I know there's someone in the audience right now going, well, by that logic, ick is just a parasite. Everything will handle itself. And you're right, it would actually. In nature, it does. That's why fish live with these parasites and these things in nature, because when that ick cyst that's on the body drops off into 2, the fish just swims a mile down the road. And when they hatch, those 2 cysts go on to 2 fish. And so goes the life cycle. And you go, well, then why isn't there just a billion ick cysts in the water? And it's because there's predators. Like, oh, there's comes this big fish, ate it. That cyst in the stomach doesn't do anything anymore. Oh, this bird ate that fish. Now it got pooped out on land, broke the life cycle, right? So in our glass boxes that we keep, way different than nature. There's not as many predators. There's usually not birds taking them out. There's not nearly big enough to get away from a system. And so nature does have the answers to these. We just can't deploy them on the scale we want because we've got a 3-gallon nano on our desk and it's the coolest thing we've ever had. But based on that restriction, we have to play the game with those limitations, and they're never going to get far enough away from the ick. They're never going to have good enough water quality, essentially. They're never going to have predators. It's just the way that it is. Can planaria hitchhike on a fish or just in the water itself? I don't know that answer. I don't think they're going to hitchhike on a fish. I don't think they'll come out of fish poop. But to be fair, I've never intensely studied planariids. Jeanne Inglorious Bettas actually studied them when she was younger, and so she probably has that answer. But that's, that's an area of study that I haven't taken. That's how I don't know everything. Is even meds. Meds took me years and years and years and years and years. I've been in the hobby for 20 years. And if I'm in for another 20 years, I bet you 20 years from now, right, I will have a better way to guide with medicine. There'll be advancements. I'll have learned more. Maybe I have had finally all the years with the dwarf frogs to give you an answer, right? And that's why in general in life, we value the elderly. They've got more life experiences. They've done things. And so it's a learning journey for me. What I thought at year 1 when I was working with meds is way different what I'm thinking at year 20. And probably way different when I'm thinking at year 30 and 40, right? Maybe meds will get banned. Maybe more new ones will come on the market. We test lots of them. And I'm not afraid to say, like, a lot of our competitors sell Fix Ick by Fritz. We got gallons of it donated by Fritz. We tested it, and it does not work for us. We're not afraid to say that. I can't say for sure it wouldn't work for anybody, but I can say for a team of 6 people in a retail store with the mission of testing it over the course of 2 months, we never once cured ick. We killed a decent amount of fish, but we look at it like we're killing it and we're getting the info to hopefully save other people from having the same problem. So if we had to sacrifice 500 fish in all this testing, if we can get the word out, it saves maybe millions of fish or thousands of fish, right? And so maybe Fritz makes a tweak and it works. Maybe it's just our water that makes it that it's not working. I don't know. I'm not going to spend the next 20 years figuring out how to fix someone else's product. But I just know it didn't work for us. And so we'll always be transparent when we see something that doesn't work for us. And it's very clear. It doesn't work for us. And, you know, there's competitors, and I asked them, I go, have you actually tested this? Because we tested it. Like, really tested it and didn't get anything. And they usually have an answer of like, no, we think it worked. Like, they don't have, most companies that are selling products, they don't set up a quarantine room and A/B test all of this stuff. They just go, we buy it for how much, we sell it for how much, and people buy it? Great. We would make a lot more money as a company if we just sold everything. If we had 1,000 different meds, because a lot of the sales that happen every day for companies is someone on X platform said this med worked for this fish for them. I trust them. I'm going to go buy that. And most often we don't have it. We don't have Pimafix. We don't have Melifix. We don't have Kenomycin. We don't have. Now, Kenomycin, can it work? Yes, I do believe it does. Kenoplex? Yes, I believe it does. Pimafix and Melifix? No, I don't believe it does. And the thing is, like, we've had experts talk, and they swear by it. I still haven't been able to replicate it, right? These are people that are considered masters of what they do, maybe breeding Corridoras, and they see like, oh, Melifix really helps. This is a person, you know, hobbyists that are a master of their craft, right? Like, let's take Dean. Dean would be a good example. Let's say in Dean's life, he's bred a lot of fish. Let's say he's touched 100,000 fish, maybe 200,000 fish. That doesn't even scratch the surface compared to a busy fish store. Like, we're going through insane amounts every week, every month. And so our testing tends to be pretty rigorous because we've got unlimited, like, let's say you just want to go, I just want to test this on ick, and you're Dean. Dean sees ick once every 3 years because he keeps really healthy aquariums and doesn't move a lot of different fish. If we want to test ick, we can test it on, oh, we have 11 different groups of fish that got ick because they came in because we ordered 92 bags of fish this week. We can test it very fast. So we get a lot of results quick, and then we got to sort through them and see which ones make sense for us. All right. As an importer, I've used the Aquarium Co-op Med Trio on tens of thousands of guppies over the years with amazing turnout. Yes, I've got lots of results with guppies as well because I'm a guppy man. I love guppies. And when they came in from Thailand, when they came in from around the world, guppies, they love to pick at everything. They'll eat a little bit of algae for you. They'll eat a little bit of fish poop. They'll eat all the things. And they really tend to pick up internal parasites. And they, on those long flowy fins, they tend to get damage in shipping as well. So they get a lot of bacterial infections. And so over the years, I tested a lot on guppies because that was my pride and joy. You'd spend $300-400 as a hobbyist. You really want to make sure those things live because they're coming from another country and you're the only one in the country that's going to have them, and then you can breed them, you can make your money back if everything goes right. But yes, different scenario than, hey, I got my fish down at the local fish store. And I would say it's even different experience buying from us at our store. You know they've been through the Med Trio once. That is a different experience than 2 miles down the road where the Pleco is, right? Or 20 miles where the next fish store is. Doesn't mean that you don't need to quarantine. We always, the most important parts, again, have the meds on hand, quarantine those fish and watch them like a hawk and learn about them. Learn how they eat. Learn, oh, that one doesn't get a chance to eat. Learn, ooh, that one's getting bullied. Ooh, that one's got a nick on its tail. Ooh, that one's got a broken jaw. Ooh, you need to learn all those things. That is the most important part. That happens regardless of where you got those fish. And so I've always taken that for granted and not stressed it enough because a lot of people will come back at me going, I just watch my fish and then I treat when they get sick. And I go, yes, that's exactly what you should be doing. You should. It's like when you buy a dog. You should play with it. You should take it for walks. You should feed it. You should, I feel my dogs every day. I pet them. And then you go, oh, is that a lump? I better take it to the vet. Wincy had a lump probably 12 months ago. What is that? Oh no, hopefully it's not a tumor. We take it in. It's a fatty tumor. It's just some fat. It's fine. Got a lumpy dog. Who doesn't like a good lumpy dog? But you notice that, and then you react and you do things. So you need to spend time with your animals. Fish included. Spend time. All right. I want to touch on a couple of updates from last week. Catherine, who was having the algae issue and was discouraged and kind of wanted to break the tank down or just get out of the hobby, posted up in the Facebook group. Then there was like 50 comments. I came in a couple of times to help. And she reported today that while not fixed, doing better. So that's great in a week. Fixing algae usually takes, in my opinion, somewhere between like 1 and 12 weeks. It's a long, usually algae takes a while to come in, and then it takes a while to go out. If we're achieving balance. We can use an algae fix and that kind of stuff and just bomb that tank today and get a radical result, but we didn't actually learn how to fix it. And that means usually it repeats itself. So, and I want to talk about the Facebook group because I finally figured out the right way to promote it. Because whenever I say, hey, you should join the Facebook group, there's so many people that say, I'm not on Facebook and I don't want to be and it's toxic. And I agree. And I have been that way. I did find a way that it worked really well for me and I wanted to share it. Because there are some benefits I'll discuss about the Facebook group that I really like. I basically unfriended anyone who I found to be toxic in my life. I muted a bunch of other people that just spam the crap out of me. Grandma, I'm looking at you. I don't need to see every recipe that's been on Facebook. So that way I can still interact. I can go look at them if I want. I get rid of all the pages I don't care about, all the hobbies I don't really care about anymore. And so basically my feed is kind of just Aquarium Co-op and the Aquarium Co-op Facebook group. And then actually I'm in a couple of Guppy groups with John Oliver. That's basically my feed. And a few, my wife and a few close people. So it's not the bombardment of, oh, it's toxic and I don't like this. Much more closed. That has been very rewarding for me because Facebook, why Facebook, Corey? Why not Discord? Why not YouTube? Why not? Why not your own forum? I'd hang out there too. Facebook exists on so many people's devices already, and they have excelled at something that nobody else has. And that is they've made it as easy as possible to take pictures and video and upload it to the group. It's so easy and so refreshing to go, oh, I think my fish is sick, or I think my plants aren't very happy. And I go, great, can you snap a quick picture and just post it? They do. And I go, well, no wonder X, Y, and Z. And everybody else chimes in going, oh yeah, this is going to be an easy fix or whatever it is. And sometimes you get the eye candy of like, wow, that's an amazing tank, right? There's a person that's got a really nice planted piranha tank on there and other things, right? And so that has been very rewarding for me. And I find myself engaging with you guys way more than I ever have. Because what I like to do is someone will have a question. I go, if I'm in the fish room working, I'm going, I have that. I have the answer right here. I take a picture and I respond. And then they're so happy. And they got something I can't do. I can't do that on YouTube. I can't give you a video response. I can't give you a picture response. I can type. And even the notification system on YouTube's not that good. We all know that. Way better on Facebook. And so I'm finding that we're getting a lot of longer, meaningful conversations there. And it's better in that group than it is on our page. Our page, notifications aren't good. It's not a good structure, blah, blah, blah. In that group, though, that private group, you have to apply. You basically got to fill out the questions because there's lots of people that want to spam crap. And the rules are basically you can't post any of your own videos. You can't post competitor websites and that kind of crap. You basically just have to be a hobbyist. And so we ask you, like, what tanks are you keeping? We want to know about it. That's how one way we filter people out. You know, if you don't keep aquariums, you're like, I keep fish. But people that are hobbyists, they go, oh, I have a 10 gallon with a betta. I've got a 20 I've got a Mr. Aqua 22-gallon long that's aquascaped and this and that. And we go, oh, there's a hobbyist. Let's let them in and join the group. So that's my plug for the Aquarium Co-op Facebook group. If you're listening to it on the podcast or something, like, it's worth giving it a look. I've sworn off Facebook in the past myself, but I can't get past that they are very good at that. And yeah, Erica says Discord is great, but they limit file size. Yes, and Discord's not on everybody's phone. And yes, we could pay to have the highest level of Discord and things like that, but that becomes a nightmare. Why? Because they don't have nearly the moderation tools that Facebook does. I don't want to have to watch and look, oh, someone's live streaming, like, oh my gosh, it's pornography in our group, we got to ban them. We can just prevent that on Facebook. We don't allow people to live stream. So, you know, I will say we are entertaining, we're talking directly with people at Discord, seeing what are the limits of what we could do. I'm not saying we're doing it, but we have been investigating just to see, like, what's a new feature coming? Could it build a better group and than we have now? And so far, no. Yeah. Discord, there's plenty of perks. I use Discord every day as well. But I think for what I want for our business, and that is, you know, you guys post when you get an order, you post and Candy will help you. Like, is this plant frozen? Did it die? You post this thing. Hey, look, this thing's doing a thing. It's very easy for a lot of people, right? And that's one thing they've been doing well. Facebook's been doing that for 20 plus years, getting people to learn how to use Facebook. And they've got market penetration. That's basically where we're at. So can I join if I post grandma's recipes? I guess if it uses some duckweed, yeah. Or Dean, grandpa recipes of guac. I've got some purple algae growing on Texas Holy Rock. I've got a Pleco in there, but it won't eat it. What do I do? It sounds pretty natural for it to turn a little bit of purple. It happens in saltwater all the time. There's some purple algae, and I don't know exactly what causes them to thrive or not in freshwater. If I didn't like the purple, which I probably would, because when a tank starts changing and is natural, I like to study it. But if I said, I cannot stand this purple, it must go away, what would I do? I would probably remove the rock, get a big old tote, put bleach and water in it, and bleach the rock, because Texas Holy Rock is bleached. That's how it becomes white. I would bleach it again, essentially, and then I would move it to another tote, and I would soak it with water and a chlorinator for a day or two, and then I would rinse it really well, and then I'd probably do that again, and then I would take one piece and introduce it back to some fish and make sure that it's okay. After I saw that, I'd move the rest of the rock back in. Bika63 coming in with 5 memberships. You get those free memberships by being active and engaged with the YouTube channel. That could be watching lots of videos. It could be liking, could be commenting. Anything you do around what we're doing, it basically tallies that up, going, oh yeah, they left a comment in the live stream. They did 20 comments in the live stream, left a comment on this video. They gave a like, they gave a thumbs down. They did this, they did that. And then it goes, hey, who's the next 5 in the list? Those are the people that are going to win. We had another update. I want to make sure I don't forget that. I don't see her in the chat right now. Adriana or Adria, the one that bought the 75-gallon tank that noticed the bottom brace was broken. They chimed in, and unfortunately, I don't remember the pet store's name because I was getting ready for the live stream. Maybe they'll chime in here. But they said they made it right and everything, and so it's a good ending to that story. And if I see that store, I will shout them out, because anyone who's doing right by customers deserves a shout out. You know, it's the hardest thing to do is to do the right thing, because usually as a business, that's only going to cost you money, but you kind of, you know, maybe believe in karma and that kind of stuff, and hopefully it's going to come back around and be a good thing. And I believe in that. So Corey Dorable, Cali Aquariums, who is on Instagram, by the way, I believe, donated 5 subs, and Akil S with 5 more subs, or more, not subs. Too much Twitch speak. I haven't watched Twitch in probably 2 years, and yet somehow it's ingrained with memberships. Sorry. Whew. if I got a musk turtle, can I have a spot for it to dry out, or do I have to have a heat lamp and a UVB? Because I saw your old turtle setup and you didn't either. Like everything, I test a bunch. I still have musk turtles. I have had them with heat lamps and UVB bulbs. I've had them with just normal shop lights. I've had them with LED lights. I've had them with everything I could think I could try. And no matter what I've done in my care, the way I feed them and they get auto water changes and stuff like that, they still breed, and I've made way more turtles than I care to admit. And so you'll see me making more. And there still are going to be, X amount on the internet out there saying, but they have to have X, Y, and Z. And I'll be like, yeah, but here I am like 10 years into this, and they still seem to be thriving. And I haven't seen any evidence they thrived more the other way. I didn't notice more basking. I didn't notice anything else like that. And so I'm not saying I'm doing it the best, because almost nothing I do the best. Would they probably enjoy being outside more? Yeah, probably, just like a human. Like, I can live in my house and never step outside, but everyone kind of knows that feeling. Like, if you've ever been at like a picnic or on your back porch and you kind of just like close your eyes and look at that sun, and because you've closed your eyes, you now feel the sun. There's something about that. There's something magical there in nature. And I do believe turtles would want that. However, I'm not sure we're replicating that with UVB, and I haven't noticed any difference in my animals. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't. It just means that I haven't noticed it. And sometimes I'm too busy with fish. I just don't notice. Let's be real. So, would I do that? If you want to test it, I would. If you've got the extra funds, I would. If you're really on a tight budget and you were asking me, Corey, should I buy super high-end turtle food or should I buy a UVB? I would say buy super high-end turtle food. I think that's going to make more of a difference. Something that's been dusted in calcium and has some whole freeze-dried fish and stuff like that. I think it's going to go more. Now, if you have unlimited budget, great, do it all. 5 more gifted subs or members coming in from Candy. Overhauls. I don't know why I always say overhauls instead of overhauls. It's in the brain. Have you ever seen musk turtle aggression on each other? Definitely. They will bite the crap out of each other. That being said, from what I see, they're constructed in a way where when they, like, you're feeding, and that's why I have to spread the food around, but I'll see them bite, like, each other's legs, and they're just kind of like, get off of me. But then, like, as they finally unlatch, right, I don't see damage to the leg, and I haven't seen any wounds or anything. So at least the mini musks that I do haven't had any problems from injuries. The only actually injuries I ever had was from fish. We had some, we lost some eyes on the turtles from Siamese algae eaters. That sucked. All right, yeah, that was basically my updates. So now we can just answer questions. See if I've missed any more of the member questions before I dive into normals. Ram's horn snails are out of control. I'm trying to breed Malaysian trumpet snails. My feeding is out of control too. Yeah, just what I do, I just grab a net and I whip up as many of those ram's horns. And I go feed them my turtles. That's a great source to get rid of them, or my puffers, or just put them in another tank. In fact, one of my tanks last week, I was removing all the brown ones because I wanted to get more pink rabbit or ram's horn snails going. So they became snacks. You've inspired me to follow my passion and take a job in the industry when I lost my job of 6 years due to COVID. Thanks for everything. Well, good luck. It's, I started out working 5 years just at a pet store. Crazy fun, really enjoyable. Did not pay well at all at the store I worked at. And I think most stores, honestly, but I haven't done a survey on pay in a long time. Although I did see like a store post and they're paying $12 an hour. And I was like, whoa, like, it must be cheaper to live over there. Am I wrong to put Rummy Nose with my wild angels? I'm missing one this morning. Wonder if he became a snack. could be, full grown rummy nose. They're a little bit smarter, they're a little bit faster, and a little bit harder to eat. Where if you've got like, I just got some like a month ago and I've got these angels that are a little bit bigger, yeah, they can get snacked on. It's not ideal, but hopefully they learn. That's, either move them or they'll learn. Would I have better luck getting a Faka puffer to accept tank mates in a 200-gallon or a Flowerhorn? Probably a Faka puffer. But my answer to you right there, like if you were in my store, I'd be like, you shouldn't do either of those fish. You basically said, how can I keep a community tank where I put a fish in that likes to eat all my other fish? And then I would say, what's more important, the community keeping all the stuff or the predator? And then based on what you answered, I would say, great, just do that one. So if you're like, well, the big fish is more important, great, don't do the little ones. Or, I want to plan a community tank and I want to be able to buy anything I want every weekend, go with my girlfriend, and we'll travel the world visiting all the fish stores. Like, great, do that. You can always buy more tanks. There's always more time, right? And so I would, and also I would say, you can also try, like, what if you kept the planted community tank and you do that for 3 years, you're starting to get bored of it. Maybe then you start going, maybe I should buy a baby Faka puffer. We can see how that goes. And if, he's starting to get snacky, like, okay, well, tired of these fish, catch all those fish, go bring them to your local fish store. Now you got a planted Faka tank. How does salt improve live bearers? Well, this is a topic of confusion for most people. So there's two types of salt. Well, there's a bunch of types of salt, but we're going to break it down to two types. There's aquarium salt, which would be just salt, NaCl. And then there's marine salt, which is NaCl plus a bunch of other stuff. Calcium, magnesium, boron, magnesium. I think I said magnesium already, but a laundry list of trace elements, pH buffer, that kind of stuff, right? So one is tons of stuff, and one is just salt. Now, if we put just salt in with the live bearers, how does that improve their lives? Well, it basically fights off fungal infections, and bacteria. So it might cure fish. That's where you see salt like that maybe at Petco's and PetSmarts where they're trying to keep illness away, right? Marine salt also, I think, is much more beneficial to live bearers, and it's because it brings the water hardness in, it brings the pH up, it also does the antifungal and antibacterial properties, right? Now that being said, if you put too much in, now the plants don't like the salt. And so I actually think it's very beneficial with most live bearers to use minimal amounts of salt of the marine variety. Now I never got to the end of the testing. So no, I only got about halfway in. But in my couple of years of testing, and there's a couple of years in my fish room, I believe I was getting really good results from 1 teaspoon, that's the small one, of marine salt per water change per 20 gallons in my fish room. So it was so little NaCl, the actual salt, that it didn't harm the plants, but it buffered my water, brought up the pH, added lots of trace elements and everything, and I saw better growth in my plants, and I saw healthier fish. Now, that would totally break down if you never changed water. It would totally break down if you change those ratios too much. Well, I shouldn't say it totally. It could totally break down if you change those ratios too much, right? And you might be saying, but Corey, what if I only change 25% of the water and I read somewhere that salt doesn't evaporate? I'd be building up salt levels if I put a teaspoon in and I change 25% of the water every week. You would be right. The thing to remember is that it's such a small amount of salt that we're probably not going to build up too much NaCl, which is good. And all those little trace elements are getting consumed by the plants. So you're actually exporting that via plant trimming. So that probably needs another 10 years of really figuring it out. But how did I get to that level? Why did I even examine this process? it was because wonder shells, there's lots of mineral blocks you can put in saltwater tanks, equilibrium, and I started comparing these things. I'm like, these aren't that different. Like they're just minerals and going into your water, and pretty much everything needs minerals. And then I started seeing, well, if I only need a teaspoon, a bag of marine salt lasts me like an eternity. Like that's a very good value. So then I stopped dosing the salt at the water changes, and I just started using marine salt to hatch brine shrimp. And I was feeding brine shrimp every day. So they were getting little doses of these minerals every day. So fish are super happy and healthy. Minerals are making the plants super happy and healthy, right? And so we thought about doing this on our package of the Easy Brine Shrimp Salt, which is right there, actually. But I wasn't confident in our testing, and I didn't want to lead people astray because I don't know it as a fact. But that brine shrimp salt, I did test it a little bit, and I do think it's good for just dosing tanks. So I'd be interested to see if someone wanted to take that, let's say you got a fish room or 5 tanks, and you want to test one of them, try adding a teaspoon per 20 gallons every time you do a water change, and let me know what that looks like in 6 months. Takes a little while for plants to perk up and things like that, but I really do think it makes a difference. It's not like buying a brand new light that makes a huge difference, right? It's not that dramatic, but in a fish room, I found that I'm losing less fish. I'm growing plants a little bit faster. I think my fry yields might be a little bigger, right? And it's really hard to narrow down, like, well, I might have been trying other foods. Ooh, I might have been a little more engaged with the fish room than I was the previous 6 months. So it's really hard to identify. Was that the magic, the secret sauce? So, but yes, that's how salt can impact livebearers in a good way, and I think it can impact most fish in a very good way. There's some that it wouldn't. You wouldn't want, like, there's some cribensis that want to be in the pHs of 5, that, like the giant cribs, they would not probably benefit from adding the touch of salt to it. But of the fish, probably 85% of all fish would benefit, I think. On the topic of salt, I really want to give brackish tanks a try, but I love the diverse community tanks. Any suggestions for friendlier brackish fish? I haven't done a whole lot with brackish. Zenzo's done a lot more than I have. In general, I have really only kept like night gobies, some different puffers, scats and monos. That's basically all. And they're just, in my opinion, most of those fish are more like the temperament of Central and South American cichlids, kind of like convicts and stuff. Like, yeah, they're a little bit scrappy, but yeah, you put them with each other, they're pretty good. But I just don't like the amount of work it takes. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of saltwater creep. And so, yeah. How would you try and diagnose and treat fish that's pine coning? I'm checking parameters and did a 50% water change already. Other fish are fine. If I'm being honest, I probably just wouldn't. That's just because I know enough to know the odds of me diagnosing what's wrong with a fish that's pine coning are dang near zero. Like, if an organ fails, you get pine coning. If it's a female and it's egg bound, you get pine coning. If it's retaining fluid, you get pine coning. If it's too constipated, you get pine coning. If that's mainly those ones. And so my response to pine coning fish, which I run into actually pretty infrequently, is to treat with Maricin, because that will help usually if it's like an internal bacterial infection where they're constipated and stuff's fermenting and the bacteria is getting out of control and they're swelling up based on that. There's a chance that helps that move it through. But honestly, I bet you if we had the data on the next 10,000 fish that had dropsy, the amount of fish that actually got treated and were better and lived out their lives is a very small number, I think. Just from all the fish that we might see in the store that come in from people / they have a problem. And most times I believe it to stem from stress, whether the tank wasn't getting enough maintenance, whether they was getting harassed by another fish, whether it wasn't the right water parameters to lay the eggs, or there wasn't a mate to lay the eggs, or something like that. So what is pine coning? Pine coning is when you get a fish that's pretty bloated, so real big abdomen, and the scales lift away. So, if you look at a pine cone and you know how it opens up, right? The scales start opening up. And that's basically you stretch it so far that, the scales that work together start going bing, 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 and they're standing out. So that's pine coning. I guess there is one other way I treat pine coning sometimes as well. If I have a quarantine tank, put a bunch of salt in there, and salt and green water I've cured it a few times, but it's just like, yep, you go live over here, here's your chance. Someone said, so I can use the easy brine shrimp salt? Yes, easy brine shrimp salt is essentially marine salt, right? And yeah, you could also add brine shrimp though, and just add the water, the brine shrimp water to your tanks. In limited amounts, I still strain it, right? If I'm hatching a 2 liter of, like as this hatcher of brine shrimp, I don't put 2 liters of salt water into my tanks. It's more like, oh, there's a cup, right? There's a cup of brine shrimp, and they're each getting a little bit of salt water with the hatch. How does it go? Bob, you're just jealous that I could explain stuff with my hands. You got these Sasquatch arms. I'm very happy to say, happy to say I'm listening to this live. I just received my order yesterday, and I'm loving my new merch. Well, thank you. Can fish meds be dangerous to beneficial bacteria? Sure. Everything. You as a human could be dangerous to that bacteria. Is it detrimental if my new shelving for my tanks is not perfectly level? The floor has flaws, and I'm not sure what I can do. Well, it would be very easy for me to say, like, get that thing 100% level, because then I got no problems. You can never be like, that guy said. Instead, my retail buildings, my warehouse, and my studio, they all have wonky floors. How do you combat that, Corey? You try your best. Mostly the only thing I care about. Let me grab this. This might help. Ugh, come here, heater box. So if this is my tank, right? It must be a Zoom Ed Low Boy. This is my tank. I am okay with it tipping forward. I'm okay, not as much okay, but tipping backward a little bit. Sometimes if you have a hang on back, makes it a little bit harder. You might get a little bit of overflowing going on. I am okay with it tipped to the left. I'm okay with it tipped to the right. Any one direction I'm okay with. It's when it wants to tip more than one direction that you have a problem. So if the front right corner is low and the back left corner is low, it's going to want to strain and it's going to want to snap, right? There's going to be pressure on that bottom because the weight's here and the weight is back here, and it's causing stress. As long as it's on the same one, though, like, oh, these two dropped, right? Does that. That's been my experience. Now, long term, if you've got a wicked bad slope, you're going to cause a lot of undue stress on that silicone. But for me personally, with my tanks, about a 1/2 inch or less, and it's only on the one side, I'm kind of okay with it. As long as the thing that only drives me nuts is when the water is off enough that you see the line of the water and the black rim doesn't cover. That drives me insane. So I try to shim it. And you can go to Lowe's or Home Depot and you can get plastic shims. And so you basically put that under the low point of the stand, not the tank, the stand, shim that up a little bit, and then you cut it. So now that being said, so that was a good point. T. Johnson said, shims under the cabinet will help. That is true. However, know that you could shim it perfectly when you're setting it up. Then you fill it up with water, and because of carpet and other things, it'll settle a bit and then be off. That's usually what happens to me. Like the 800 gallon, you can make it level. Like we put levels on it, and that stand is level. You put 800 gallons of water on rubber and maybe a little bit of cracked cement or carpet, stuff compresses. And that's where I'd be like, ooh, yeah. And then it's a lot of work to be like, well, we could drain it, remove the 800 pounds of sand. Like sometimes we've done that. You get a car jack for us. We car jack it up, adjust. That's why I have, if you guys watch that video where I was using the comically big crescent wrench to work on the CO2. That's why I own that comically big crescent wrench, to get two hands on it to move the feet on the 800 gallon. And so you move that, and then you have to put it back down, let the car jack down, get the sand back in, get the water back in, fill it all the way up and go, oh my gosh, we went a little too far. Oh, do you really want to spend another like 6 hours dropping it by 1/8 of an inch? No, not really. Let's just leave it. And that's what happens. So, and it'll still be different. So let's say we did get it perfectly level. 6 months in, material compresses, rubber, concrete, a lot of stuff settles. And so even 8 months in, you'll be going, oh, it's off again. So it's kind of always a little bit of a battle. Just dosed my tank with Paracleanse yesterday. I noticed this morning that it expired last year. Should I continue the treatment and start fresh meds in 2 weeks? I would. If you were asking, Corey, you have expired medication, would you use it in your aquarium? I personally would. Would I advise you to do that? No, because I can't guarantee it would work. That being said, I dosed the medication that I dosed the fish I bought from Oregon. It was expired. I don't care. In my opinion, I haven't noticed any detriment. Doesn't mean there isn't one. I just haven't noticed one. Big difference there. I've heard you like peanut butter cups, so you should definitely try Purdy's peanut butter bar. It's a round-looking bar, and it's the best chocolate peanut butter snack I've ever had. I haven't had a Purdy bar. I will if I see one. Setting up a new planet tank with a canister filter from a cycled tank. Will I still experience diatoms? Yeah, probably. Just because your substrate and stuff probably has silicates in it, phosphates, and it will probably saturate the water. You'll apply light, probably. But I wouldn't worry about it. The co-op only seems to get clown killies. Do wholesalers not have other types consistently, or is there not much demand? Basically, it's not much demand. People, we can get a lot of different killifish. The problem is people don't buy a lot of other killifish. Yeah, the co-op is a very optimized store to make money because we pay our employees a living, well, that's always a moving target. I don't know if I should say living wage. We pay them a good wage because I could say that, and then like 3 months later, inflation hits extra hard, and it's like it's no longer a living wage, and we'll have to adjust. But I believe we pay our people a good wage, starting at $22 an hour plus full benefits. We even you can get $100 in Uber Eats every month. You get shoes and clothing and 401k matching and stuff like that. Just as a normal retail employee that walked in off the street, started working for us day one, right? Well, I guess it's 90 days in, but so with that burden of that high level pay, we have to make sure we're very efficient in the store. And it doesn't make sense to have a tank down there full of Gardner Achilles that aren't selling, or Australia, or a bunch of the other ones. Now, we do bring them in from time to time. We can get them And we probably will carry more when we have 3 times as many tanks. But for now, we have to optimize going what is actually moving and what are we just taking care of and not moving. Clam gillies move. What's my opinion on filterless aquariums? I think they're dramatically overhyped. Didn't say they were bad. Didn't say I would never do it. I just think they're dramatically overhyped. The lure of the reason people are lured, I think, to filterless aquariums is there's no filter. I don't have to do any cleaning. I don't have to do any work. That sounds great. And the reality is the difference between a filterless aquarium and a filtered aquarium is a change of mindset. It's not the filter. So like my sponge filters, I've got sponge filters I haven't cleaned for years, but it runs a filter. Yeah, it's basically a filterless aquarium that runs a filter, but I treat it the exact same way as a filterless aquarium. Understock, feed clean foods, change water, and I have the backup of the filter if I ever need it. And that's my pushback, right? My pushback is I realize you want to do a filterless aquarium, but why? What is the part that is the lure? And then I go, but for $30, you could have like a bulletproof filter system and still just treat it like this filterless tank. And you'll have the security. So that's my take on it. I'm a burnout nurse. I want to work for you. I'll commute from Kingston. We had someone commuting from Bremerton for a while, and it was my first employee, Angelo, in fact. My first paid employee, because I had someone that donated some time. But they took the ferry. And so I've been through this, and we paid for the ferry and everything, and it was... The problem we ran into was we need people to work on the weekends, and those ferries are brutal on the weekend. There'd be times when he'd leave work, and it'd be a 2 to 3 hour wait before he'd get on the ferry to get home. And that just wasn't a good work-life balance. Same thing, trying to get to work on the weekends. And so we pretty much learned, yeah, that's not going to work. Any update on when USB air pumps will be back in stock? I think it'll be around the 16th. That's my guess. I think they're supposed to land the 13th. Usually there'll be a little bit of a lag. If we were picking dates, I'm picking the 16th. It's probably a weekend. That's like probably the worst day I could pick. I don't even know. What day is the 16th of the... That's a Thursday. That could happen. All right. 16th's the day I'm picking. How do you dispose of excess snails? I have a couple Pleco grow-outs that I feed heavily and produce more snails than I can feed to my pea puffer. Go give them to your local store. Make a friend that's got a bunch of puffers or a turtle. You could find someone with some African cichlids. There's some, like Rhodocii loves to eat snails. There's some different ones there. Yeah, but I bet you if you posted like in a local group or Craigslist or something, there's going to be people out there that are turtle nerds, like, oh, I got a red-eared slider or a painted or whatever, and they would love to have that calcium source for their turtles. Any good sources online for male flowerhorns? I don't know. I haven't really even looked at flowerhorns in probably 10 years. I still at some point want to own a female SRT, the Super Red Texas, at some point, but I've had people go, hey, I've got one, and I'm like, well, I'm not really ready. It just, I really like that fish. I think it really looks good, but I'm not ready to own one. When's the next Dean fish room tour? He says he's almost ready. I've been trying to get over there for the last 2 months or so, and it's not to Dean standard, which Dean standard is like a white glove, walkthrough. Because he's been working on his beach house and he helped his daughter move and buy a home and was helping over there. Dean's fish room is, it's dropped down to like I don't know. I was trying to think of another really good aquarist, but then I was like, well, that will mean that I think less of them. But Like, his fish room, I bet you, is still insane. Like, great, but it's not Dean great. And Dean is very particular on how his stuff looks, if it's going to be on camera. And don't get me wrong, I've been to his fish room when it's bad. And I'm like, we could film right now. What are you talking about? He's like, see that right there in that back corner? There's algae. It's like, yeah, if you look for it. Like, you know, these are living aquariums, right? But Dean runs to a standard of excellence. So, yeah, that's a chef. I was going to bring that up. I was going to say, like, he runs a clean kitchen, too. And so I think that's just, you know, he doesn't want to compromise. And I'm there filming his fish room and he lets us in. I'm not going to be the guy that sets the rules. Clown loaches will eat snails. Yeah, that's a good point. Get some clown loaches or some dwarf chain loaches. Those are good too. You own a massive puppy, you're ready for a flowerhorn? It's not that I can't take care of one. It's that I think flowerhorns are super boring. So even though I think it's a good looking fish, I find them to be incredibly boring. And I know everyone, my flowerhorn's so cool. Oh man, it comes to my tank. I get it. It's the same reason I don't own a Great Dane or every other type of dog. It's not that I don't like them. It's not that I don't think they look cool. It's that I don't need poops this big, right? Like, I've got Chihuahuas. That's great. Love them. Got a big old pooper in my 800-gallon ladybird. Just don't need more of them, right? I think they're cool fish to look at. But maybe I've developed the aquarium wisdom. I don't know what to call it, but I know there are fish that I think are amazing, but I won't enjoy the owning of. I really, really like doveye. I've tried them a few times, but I don't enjoy owning doveye cichlids. I think they're very beautiful. I think they're fun to interact with a couple of times. But in the terms of cleaning it and feeding it, I don't find them to be super fun. I don't like getting bit by my fish. I realize, but we can get a docile one. I know, I don't even want to have to go through that. So, how's it going with the new shop building? I would say slow and steady is what I would say. We're gonna have a meeting this month and figure out more of a timeline. There was something else. If we were going to build something else too. It's just one foot in front of the other. We're not in a rush. It won't make us any money. So that's why we're not in a rush. It will be cool. People will be like, oh, wow, it's so good. I get it. But we'll staff more people and all of that. We actually won't make more money. It'll actually cost us money. And so we're doing it. And it'll be great for video and that kind of stuff. But the minute we open it up, the store is 3 times as big. We need more employees on the floor to prevent theft, to make sure that you know, if you're in the store, you can find an employee in a timely manner and doesn't feel like a ghost town. And so a lot of it in business, it's not just hire some people. You have to hire people and you have to train them. And to get to the level where our employees are, it takes years. And so we're, essentially training our employees to be better and better and better and better. Then we'll start bringing on some new people. We'll start training them up so that I think most people would agree they get that Aquarium Co-op experience where they're knowledgeable, they're passionate, and they care. And we don't want to let that slip. And we've got amazing employees. And so we don't want to dilute that down, even temporarily. People are going to rise to the occasion. We see that. When they're surrounded by good employees around them, everyone wants to be good. That is a great thing to have going. We don't want, what if we hired on 2 or 3 people and those people started like a new faction of like, we wanted to be lazy or something. We don't want there to be resentment between the employees. We don't want there to be like, oh, I don't like working with this person. I'll work with these people. And so we basically just keep adding a person when it makes sense. Like, yeah, everybody's trained up. Great. Let's add a person as we need it. And so, and it's not easy to find great candidates. It takes time and energy and effort. So it'll happen when it happens. And I guess, my guess is somewhere April, maybe later though. Because I literally could walk in there tomorrow like, ooh, that's a great idea. But Corey, that's going to delay us by 6 weeks. I don't care. Let's do it. It's kind of like an extended fish room of like, if I just get an idea like, we should do that. Nobody's doing that. That'll be awesome. And my eyes will light up and we'll do it. And it'll delay it and people will be sad. But when it opens, they're going to be like, whoo, all right, this is cool. And that's what I want. What would you use for an infection that has emerged from a cut? I've got mollies and some brackish water, and I've had some mollies get cut on the head, and a white infection has occurred on both fish. My question, Hunter, would be, what level of brackish are you running? At high enough levels of brackish, it should be killing most bacteria and fungal infections. So that would be my first thing of up the salinity. If that really wasn't working, I would use some Icex and some Maricin to fight that off. Yeah, someone said they wish they had good employees so they don't have to fix problems. Yeah, it comes down to training and process documents and scale. People forget about scale all the time. Like I think we have 5 brine shrimp hatcheries going right now. And when we only were hatching 2 or 3, no problems. Now that we're at 5, we're getting some bad hatches. And what we found was we weren't cleaning the hatchers. Well, we're not sure we're to the other end of it yet, but it seems in our investigating that the hatchers weren't getting cleaned well enough. And so we're getting some eggs sticking and that kind of stuff, and weren't getting the hatch rates we wanted. And so then we're building a process document. We're figuring out, like, well, how did it happen? Like, okay, well, 5, there's more people doing it. Not everyone cleans the same way. We don't have a standard. Like, what is the standard way to clean it? Do we use this brush? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? Are we doing this? And so once you get everybody on the same page, you start getting more reliable results. And that's at scale. When, one person was hatching 1 brine shrimp hatchery, that's repeatable because same person's doing it. Well, now we got 5 brine shrimp hatcheries, and different people are doing it. And then, you get some irregularities, and that's not good for business. It's like, well, we needed those to feed the quarantine fish. We needed those to feed these fish. And, okay. So we look into it. You also may have noticed in our retail store, we're actively improving the retail store. So like I think last week we replaced the 7 worst tanks with brand new tanks that were painted and drilled and all of that. So we were originally going to just build the retail store, the new expansion, close down the old one for like a couple of weeks, renovate it. Instead, we're just doing them in tandem. Like, okay, replace this while we're doing that. And so more employees are learning more things. People have learned how to drill tanks, how we like painting them. And what that'll do is it'll pay dividends for years to come of, we had a problem. I remember when we did that 3 years ago. I could drill and paint a 20-gallon and swap that out this weekend. So we're, as a company, we're working a lot on knowledge transfer. And that knowledge transfer all the way from my brain to Randy's brain, to the next brain, to the next brain, to the next brain, till the person that's new. And hopefully they'll know a thing or two about, why isn't this tank draining really well? Well, when I put it together, the hose goes into the pipe. Maybe there's a snail shell in the pipe, right? They'll learn more things instead of, we better call the next person up in the chain. And eventually we'll meet someone that knows where to look. And we cross chain as well. So we'll have retail go work at the warehouse and stuff like that. Just to keep we want people to appreciate other people's jobs, right? Because I think we're a big business, and the more you get a day in the life of like, so this is what the warehouse is like. So this is what customer service is like. So this is what filming is like. So this is what this is like. The more you respect it, right? And I learned a lot of respect for Joel, for instance, who's building the store, when he taught me how to do electrical. Because he was doing some at one of my old fish rooms. I'm like, this electrical is taking forever. Like, we're just replacing outlets and doing this and that. And he goes, great, tomorrow you'll learn how to do it. And after a day of swearing at trying to get the wire to feed directly and get it just right, and then get it to fit in the box and make sure the neutral's right, I go, you are way faster at this than I am. And I can see that you've been working at a diligent rate, and I am in the wrong. I am now better for it. And so I try to learn as many tasks as I can so I can understand the challenges with them so I can be better prepared to forecast. And so, yeah, cross training is a great thing I think in life in general. It doesn't even have to be at work. Learn things. Let's see here. What's the difference between Expel P and Paracleanse? They're completely different medications. So one is levamisole, that would be Expel P, and the other one is praziquantel and metronidazole. They both deworm, but not every medication works on everything. Think about humans. I have a bacterial infection. We have lots of different antibiotics because not every antibiotic treats every bacteria. Same thing for internal parasites. Not every anti-parasitic thing is going to treat every parasite. And so that's where you get things like, why does anchorworm need Dimolin? Because that's the thing that kills anchorworm. I don't know. Like, well, why don't we use Dimolin for this? Because Dimolin doesn't work on that. That's why. And so it's kind of one of those, it just is. It's kind of like, why is there not burritos in Italian food? Because there's not. They didn't. I bet at some point someone tried to make a pasta type thing that was like a tortilla, and it never took off in that culture, and so it just isn't. Not that it couldn't be done, it just isn't. Could be done tomorrow. I'm sure there's a Italian Mexican fusion restaurant that's going to open up and go out of business within the next 6 months. I'm sure of it. We heard you like fusion, so we fusioned your fusion and then infused it. Anyone that has to deal with customers who are upset will certainly back my stance. Oh, I missed the other part of that, but probably. Customers are the best and the worst parts of every job. And even the same customer can be both. That's what's interesting about it. I find that when it's good, it's good. When it's not, it's not. And I think we've all experienced that in our lives, probably with a boyfriend or a girlfriend. When it's good, it's the best thing on the planet. When it's not good, it's the worst thing ever. I went from that was the best person in my life to I hate that person. And that happens in business relationships all the time too. Italian burrito is manicotti. All right. I got to look that up. I don't think I've ever had manicotti in my life. It kind of just looks like you roll up lasagna, but that's what Mexican food is too, right? Like, isn't a burrito just a rolled up taco? Like, yeah, fair. All right, good call. I got to brush up on my Mexican, Italian infusion analogies for the live streams. Clear. How much of my team's knowledge is tribal and how much is documented? I would say more than 90% is documented because Randy is a badass. Randy is like Mr. Process Document. He is, for as much as I am let's say like a leader and a thinker and a tinkerer and good in front of a camera, like I've got all these qualities that are pretty darn good for business. Randy brings, who's my vice president now, congratulations if I haven't announced that yet. He's been that way for like a month or something. He brings the traditional, because he's got his MBA and that kind of stuff. He brings the like, because he was high up and traveled warehouse and stuff and did supply chain stuff for Amazon, and that knowledge base, he was really good years ago of like, we have to do process documents. And a guy like me is going, yeah, but why? And he's like, because that's what scales. Because I could teach 2 people in the span of like, they'll be trained up in a month. And it's like, yeah, but you're not going to want to do that every time we hire somebody for the rest of your life. And that's not going to scale. And when someone has a question, we need a document for them to reference it. And so, Candy can attest to it. She's had to write lots of process documents on how are new customer service people going to help people with questions. We go so far as to what is the Aquarium Co-op's official stance on ICX, so that if someone was to fill in and someone's asking, we have a knowledge base, they can look it up and go, our official stance is this. And we can go, if we hire somebody new, even out of customer service, and they want to know, like, what do we do? We have it. Not everything is documented, but man, we have a lot documented, and we're always creating more. Every time there's something new, we try to standardize a process and then write a document on it. And it made it easy for me, because it used to be I used to pick and pack in our warehouse and I'd help ship stuff out. Then there was a few years where I didn't need to. And then we had a bad snowstorm where we didn't have enough people and I had to go in. And the system, the scanners had changed, the warehouse management software had changed, there's a bunch of changes. On the surface, same thing. Thing goes into a tote goes here, then you pack it and you ship it. But not knowing how to log into the scanner, not knowing, oh, you wait for this beep, you do this, you do that. And by reading through this document that takes 7 minutes to read through, it made me be able to jump right in and help. And that's exactly what it's meant to do. And so while it takes a while to build those documents, you build it and then you go, the best thing you do is build a document, hand it to someone who hasn't done it before, and watch them for a mistake. Oh, they got to a screen, they didn't know what to do. Let's update the process document. And so I'm fairly lucky in that my job, I don't know if I've had to really make a process document yet. I make process videos, like where I lay it out and do it. But because I'm usually pioneering, I try to pioneer something. Here's something brand new we're doing. I teach it to someone, and then it's their job to teach it out, is basically how that kind of goes, especially with marketing and the stuff we're doing there. Why after cherry shrimp molts are they not turning deep red again? My guess is they're missing something in their diet. So I would look at the food, look at the water quality, those types of things, and see maybe something's off a little bit there. And it will take a little bit to be as intense, but they shouldn't just be like clear. Is it important for local fish store to pay attention to plant prices online? I swear a local store has no idea. I can get everything cheaper delivered to my house. I think that's a double-edged sword. So I don't think stores should compete with online, because I think they're delivering a better product. So what does that mean? That means I can give you a better plant in my retail store than I can ever ship across the country. So in theory, plants should actually be more expensive in my store because they're going to be better. And there's more attention to detail, and there's more people watching them, and all of these things. That being said, the average consumer goes, oh, this plant in my store and this plant at random company, which one's cheaper? I'll buy that one, thinking they're the same. And the reality is they're not the exact same, but too often there's not enough of a difference, or the consumer doesn't know enough about the product to know there's a difference. So another way we might look at that, maybe there's a German Shepherd in my local shelter, and I say, oh boy, I am looking for a German Shepherd. And then there's also a German Shepherd AKC breeder or something, I don't know. And you're going, that dog's $6,000, that one's $200. I'm gonna just get the $200 one. And you might adopt that dog, and it's the world's best dog. Turns out it was purebred, and man, is it awesome. Or you might get that one, comes with a little bit of allergy, like, ooh, had a bad home, gotta unlearn some habits, or it's not purebred, or it was already 5 years old, or, right? And so we all will make these choices. We'll make the choice, like I would adopt a dog because that's who I am. But maybe if I really needed an animal, a service animal, right? Maybe I needed one because my grandma has gone blind and she needs a dog that's dependable because her life is depending on it. I would then go to a specialist who trains dogs to be, like support dogs. That makes sense. Same thing here. I think if you went to a planted tank store that really focuses on plants, those plants are going to be better than someone who doesn't, right? We see that plant store versus Petco PetSmart, right? local fish store that keeps African cichlids versus Planet Community Tank store. You're going to see the differences, right? Do I think it's important, though, to go, oh, my Anubias Nana Petite in the store is $15. Online, it's $12.99. I think that's good. Now, if is $19.99, like, whew, you might start losing some of those customers. And when it comes to dry goods, it's really hard for anybody to see the benefit of like this, like this heater here. Ugh. This heater here, if it's $26.99 on our website and a store wants to sell it for $35.99, it's going to be real hard for a retail customer to be like, but why is this one more? It's the same product. The only things I would say that you would gain from that, maybe you got the in-person knowledge to help you sell it, right? Maybe you were able to get it that day because your other heater burned out, right? Maybe they're providing extra services around that, which I hope so, right? But should they match online pricing? I don't think they should necessarily match it. They should do what makes sense and know that if they're charging more, there should be a benefit to it. And I think if you get too far off of that scale, it doesn't work. But I think if you're within reason, I think most reasonable people are willing to spend a little bit more to support a mom and pop that's local, because they know it's probably a little bit better for the environment. They know the money stays a little more local and things like that. But everyone's budget's different and everyone has a different tolerance, right? So $1 more for a plant, yeah, you probably just pick it up that day because it looks good. $10 more for plant, you probably just order online because you can get 2 for the price of 1, right? I have Val in my tank, and it's been doing great for over a year. Over the last month, I've noticed blades breaking and floating to the top. Is that normal? Could be running low on nutrients. Could have a new fish that's got a taste for harassing the plants. But usually it's something environmentally has changed, either fish or nutrients. Plants usually, like, it's not a thing where plants like just get old or anything. There's got to be something. X is happening, result is Y. Well, we filled in Y. Y is Vallisneria blades are breaking. Now he's got to solve for X. What is X? What's the X factor? What has changed in the last year? Something. Maybe water quality from your tap. Maybe water temperature. Maybe food you feed. Maybe fish you keep. All of those things. Keeping Fish Simple says, every time I catch you live, I'm just going to say this. Come to Australia. So many amazing places to see wildlife. You wouldn't regret it. I agree. I probably would not regret it. I saw your video. I didn't get a chance to like watch it. I just saw and like clicked a couple of times. But yeah, wild shrimp is always fun to see. I would definitely spend too many hours filming underwater just looking at shrimp in native habitats. Did the Sarah ONIP tab revert to non-organic? I got the ONIP tabs before the switch to all organic. I have heard the formula is ruined. Has the formula been perfected, or are they so-so? Well, the story goes, they had the best product ever. Then they made it absolutely terrible. Then they claimed they never changed it. Then they claimed they made it better, and it was the same thing. Then they actually changed it a little bit, and now it's halfway decent. But it's still not the golden child it was before. So we sell them. We do use them from time to time, and they are good. It's just really, it's kind of like, maybe it's like a local restaurant, right? And maybe mom and dad ran it, and dad's been cooking for 1.5 billion years. And let's say mom was front of house and was just the nicest person ever. And then the day comes when they both retire. And now you've got the family running it. And it's, 2 sons and a wife or something. I don't know. And you go in and it's still good. But it's just missing. It's missing that charm that it had for so many years. And because you've experienced that, what it could be, you hold it to that standard. But someone who's brand new to that restaurant will come in like, this is amazing, it's great. And you're going, it is. But man, they used to do the dessert just this way. Oh, to die for. Now, yeah, it's all right. So, all right. What gave you the confidence to start a store? Money. So, my silent business partner gave me $50,000, and we had an agreement that if I failed, I owed him nothing. Even with that in place, it took me two years to actually say yes and start doing it. So that's what gave me the confidence that if I failed, I didn't have to file bankruptcy and all of these things. And I said, what have I got to lose? I'm losing someone else's money. And I was real clear of like, I'm a 27-year-old that doesn't, like, I'm pretty good at running this store, but there's so much we don't know. I could easily lose your money. And he said, I think you'll do the right thing. And he invested in me. And he's been paid that money back. I don't even know how many fold, a lot fold. Worked out really well. But just as easily, like, if you take 10 of that story, probably 9 times out of 10, it's a failure. And I knew that. That's exactly why I was like, I'll give you, he owns 25% of the business. I said, you can have 25%, which hindsight being 2020, best deal that's ever been made by that guy, by far. But at the time, 27-year-old handing someone $50,000, crazy risky decision. So, worked out though. And that's how I got the confidence to do it, because I had nothing to lose. But I still could lose time and didn't want to disappoint my friend and things like that. So I still took it crazy serious. And to this day, I still take it too serious. YouTube captions are running for you before your voice on the stream. So I'm a robot. The secret's out. Oh no. I've just been using an AI chatbot this whole time. Corey keeps missing my question. I may take it to the forum. I'm interested in seeing what happens with these shrimp. I have missed it. If you repeat that question, I might have read that one. Unfortunately, I can only read and talk so fast. It's the AI chatbot. It starts lagging and you start getting closed captioning before I even say it. It definitely could not be that person is actually not watching it live and he's like a 30-second delay because he either paused or his computer lagged and doesn't realize that it's off by a little bit. That would be impossible, actually. Have I tested Thrive Ferts? Yes. Yes, I have. What are my thoughts? My thoughts are perfectly fine fertilizer if you like dosing ammonia. I know there's some that don't have ammonia in it. Yes, I know. Yeah. It's kind of like, to me, this question, it gets old because it gets asked all the time. And it's kind of like, let's say you invented McDonald's and the Big Mac, and you have people every day that would just say, have you ever had a Burger King Whopper? What are your thoughts? And then you'll have other people like, how do they compare? And which one do you think is better? And then for my 12-year-old daughter, which one should they be eating? And for this thing, it's like, well, if I thought, it's kind of like, if I thought Thrive was better than Easy Green, I would change Easy Green to be Thrive. And so it just gets long-winded for me. It's like, oh, here we are, the same place. It's like a Groundhog's Day of like, yep, I've tested it. Yes, it's like, the next thing will be like, have you tested KD Tropical's light? Yes. The minute he released a light from a different company, I bought one. Have I tested it? Yes. What are my thoughts? It's all right. I think it's pretty expensive. I think it's all right as a fish color light. I don't, like aesthetically in my tanks, I don't like it. But everyone's got different preferences. There will be people that love that light. It reminds me of another local fish store where they don't grow any live plants and they just light their fish really well so they'll sell. That light makes sense for them, but the price point is, in my opinion, crazy. And, I don't want to badmouth it. So I, I'm not going to pick it apart because in doing that, I'm too biased. I have my own light and there's a big chance for me to put somebody else down, which I don't like doing. I don't like ruining other people's livelihoods if I can help it. And the opinion will be biased. And I don't know where I was going with that, but and it's not a good thing, So I try to. That's why in a lot of the groups and everything, I just go, just don't talk about competitors because I don't want to talk about the faults that I found because it doesn't. You could say maybe it could help the hobby. And that's true, maybe it could. But I will stand up for products when I know it's clearly bad for the hobby. But when it comes down to preference, and I believe lighting is the biggest version of preference. And so it's just not my preference. But I do know there's going to be people that love that light, for sure. Just because they go, oh, I've never seen my fish look like this before. I like my fish to look like they're under the sun because I go to Peru and I enjoy that. I enjoy nature. But there's some people that will just want, I just want my red Asian arowana to be more red. And a light like that would help that. So. Legion says, I don't like the spectrum of Katie Tropical's light. Yeah, but there's plenty of people that don't like the spectrum of our light. We've had some returns, and we've had people saying, I don't like how green or yellow it is. That's fine. Everyone's got different preferences. And so that doesn't make our light worse. It just means it's, to me, most things boil down to preference. Do you like Mexican food? Do you like Italian? Do you like American? Do you like Thai? Do you like Indian? And the reality is I can eat any of those. What's your absolute favorite? Oh, I don't know. It's between Indian and Mexican food for me, probably. And so if I was Katie and I got married at an Indian restaurant where we, rented out the banquet hall or whatever and invited all of our friends, had lots of Indian food. Many of them had never had some of those Indian foods before, and most of them were like, wow, what have I been missing out on? So I tend to lean towards, I really love Indian food, and it used to be more expensive, but now everything's kind of gotten expensive, so I don't know between when it was expensive and I had less money, and I worked at a pet store, someone else's pet store, you buy Mexican food. It's cheaper and goes further. Now we're doing a little better. I like Indian food, but I also, as I'm getting older, I get a little more heartburn, and so I don't like Indian food for lunch and not so much for dinner. So, opinions change. People like different things. Who would say such a crazy statement? That is impossible. If the internet finds out that you think people like different things, they will be all over you. I'm detangling my airlines listening to this. You're gonna need to watch an 8-hour Christmas live stream. Joel's got a bird's nest of airline tubing that would make most people just have an anxiety attack. Did I ever find the Sin Bordes bread without crust in Washington? I haven't. But I do hate crust. Is there a bottom dweller that can go with dwarf puffers? I can't think of any. The answer is yes, I've done it. But then it's also that's 2 out of 10 times. So it's not an easy recommendation. It's mostly on the temperament of the pupper. Tacos or churros? Tacos. Churros, they're nice. I'll get them for the table. But I want two bites of churros. I'm savory instead of sweet. I'm currently slowly building a fish room. I've got 5 out of the planned 20 tanks running. At what point is it worth switching from heating the tanks to heating the room? My opinion is day one. Why even bother? If you know you're going there, just set the room up that way. I want the reliability of heating a room much more even. I want to learn as I'm building, right? So what if you build a row and you're heating it with heaters and you build this whole thing out and then you go to switch your heating, you're like, yeah, but now the bottom tanks are running colder than I like. You could have changed the airflow, you could have changed where the bottom row started, you could have changed the tank size, you could have changed. So I like to start from day one. If I know I'm doing a thing, let's build it like I want to see the end result that way. Madras or Vindaloo? I'm not a Vindaloo guy. My wife likes Vindaloo. I'm all about the creamy curry. So I like butter chicken, tikka masala. There's a cashew one I like, korma. Those 3 are like enough that I can switch between those 3 and like never get bored. I love samosas. I love garlic naan. The more garlic, the better. Who's a better cook, my mom or my wife? That's a question that couldn't get me into trouble at all. My grandma. How do you like that? What's the safest way to capture my clown knife so I can move him to a larger tank? I got 2 options for you. Buy yourself a koi sock net. It can be a little spendy. Or use a pillowcase. So you get that pillowcase in the water, you get it around your knife, you can close the end, you can pick it up, let a little bit of the water drain for a second, then you can move that because he's going to be flopping around. You can move that to the new tank, open up the end, let him swim out. Same way that you move arowanas and other large fish that don't have lots of spines and stuff. Just finished a massive algae scrub and a water change. I added root tabs and easy green. My coolie loaches and bamboo shrimp are enjoying all the darting around, eating up the kicked up debris. I kicked up a lot of debris yesterday, decorated, set up, whatever you want to call it, a new 40 breeder. I haven't gone out to see it today, so I'm hoping it's cleared up and gives me a better picture of what's going on so I can start envisioning what fish I want to put in there. Recommend some test strips if I'm guessing you mean can't get mine. If you can't purchase mine, I recommend the Tetra test strips. Outside of that, let me make sure. I think every other test strip outside of the Tetra ones and mine have been way too inaccurate for me to use. So, is that true? I don't think I found other ones that I really like. Those are the 2. When are guppy fry females old enough to breed? And is it common for them to die after giving birth? Common enough. I mean, if I had guppies give birth 100 times, if they died 10 out of the 100, I'd say probably about fine. As far as how old, I think it's at 2 months they can start being impregnated. So if you're trying to separate them, I would do it earlier, like 6 weeks. Earlier the better. Give me the motivation to drive from Federal Way to Edmonds to go to the co-op? No. If you can't find your own motivation, just don't do it. It'll just be a letdown. I'm willing to drive up to 5 hours to get to a fish store. If you're not willing to drive like the 40 minutes, just don't bother. I'm not here to convince you to spend your money and drive and enjoy the hobby. Like if we haven't, keep listening, keep educating yourself. Maybe one day you'll see the value in making the trip. If not, hey, that's fine too. I I probably should encourage people not to come to the store because it's always so busy and people complain that it's always so busy. So we wouldn't even like lose more money. We would just have the people that love going there spend more money because they can spend more time. But, you know, if you want to make the trip, great. If you don't, great. Enjoy. Any tips for growing your shrimp community in a community tank? Lots and lots and lots of cover. Lots of plants, rock piles. Anywhere where fish can't get to is where your shrimp can hang out and breed, and the babies can grow up and maybe get away from them. Wish your test strips had ammonia on them? Me too, but it can't be done. It contaminates the other results. I tried it. Can't be done. I thought, what's a better way to make a better test strip? Make it do everything. We could do that. Can't do that. I appreciate you showing us when your tanks look bad, because it really is more relatable seeing that even you get algae instead of watching pro aquascapers who always have perfect tanks. Yeah, I mean, we could do that too. I was gonna say it's not hard. It's not that it's not hard. We could project that image. In fact, when I was doing my video yesterday, which is not quite done yet, I need to film a little more today probably, I was saying that, you know, I try to make it realistic of like, if I need to do the aquascaper thing, I should have bought 50 of this plant instead I'm using 10. And it's because with 10, that costs you guys $100. 50, that's $500. I'm just showing you something you would attain in like 3 years, but not realistic. And so I used probably $300 worth of rocks and $100 worth of plants, and already that's more than most people's budget. But people don't realize in these aquascape things, in my opinion, this is why a lot of the aquascaping type channels end up having to be endorsed by so many brands, because it's so expensive to do that aquascaping lifestyle that they have to be sponsored, because, well, to do this project I need 35 tissue cultures of this moss, and I need this and this and this and this, and a lot of these tanks are in the thousands of dollars to set up, and it's not a sustainable model. So if you spend $2,000 to build a tank and you only make $800 in revenue, you're losing $1,200. But if you can get plant companies that donate, you can get people that donate lights and stuff, and we donate stuff to people, then all of a sudden, hey, it's starting to make some sense. But that doesn't make sense for you guys, right? It's cool to see, but it's not realistic. And I try to give more realism to everything. I'm trying to be candid with you guys. I try to, do it as if I was a hobbyist. So even though I only use 10 of the plant, and I look in inventory and be like, oh, we have 900, I can just go 20 minutes away and get as many as I want. I realize that won't resonate with you guys, and it doesn't help you teach, right? Or it doesn't help you learn. And so on average, I don't. I go, well, we'll take the long road, because everyone else taking the long road. I want the people to see how to do it the long way, not the quick way. Did I see Pectec's last video intro? Much like yourself, he's going through stuff, and I would love to send some love and support his way. I haven't seen that. I will take a look at that. I didn't watch that video. What kind of Rolex do I own? I own a is it Datejust? Yeah, just a Datejust Rolex. Not a presidential or anything like that. Just like a low level Rolex. I think we paid about $8,000 or something, which in the Rolex world, that's a low-end Rolex. I do have a crush on the Stella Rolexes. Completely out of my budget, but maybe I'll start putting quarters away and eventually buy one. I'll find one on the cheap somehow. I want a Stella Rolex in green. Oof, be cool. Pipe dream though. Have I ever used black tourmaline in white quartz rocks and escape? I researched and found out it's safe, but I haven't seen anyone using it online. I don't think I have. I had a really cool garnet gravel one time. It was super cool, but we couldn't buy very much of it. But no, I don't think I've done anything with tourmaline. Probably inert though. I just spent $18 on a watch. It's more than I spent in the last years. Has that Rolex ever seen aquarium water? Yeah. When it comes to luxury stuff, like I don't have luxury cars in my opinion, like a Subaru and a van. But when it comes to, well, my entire life basically, you buy things to use them. At least that's my philosophy. If I'm going to buy it and just like only ever look at it and be too afraid to use it, that's not a good use of money in my opinion. And so, like jewelry for the wife and my Rolex and stuff, it has to be worn and used. Otherwise, there's no reason to get it. If it's like, oh, well, it's investment. Well, sure, but there's other ways to invest money. And that's, but that's just my philosophy. If you're going to buy something, use it. You'll get the enjoyment out of using it. That's great. And don't be led by the fear of maybe like you could damage it, you could lose it, it could be stolen. All of those things could happen. I could also love it. I could also have a good time. So, how do I go about replacing a warranty item when buying from the store? I don't have anything to replace, just wondering. Well, we're going to make it really hard. If you're at our retail store, we're going to make you get out of the car. You're going to walk like 25 steps. You're going to look at the first employee that greets you and say, this product I have here seems to not be working. Can you take a look at it? They're going to go, sure. They're going to try to replicate the problem and they go, oh, sure enough, that's broken. And they're going to hand you a brand new one off the shelf. You're going to take another 22 steps back to your car and you're going to drive home and you're going to be happy. You might have stopped somewhere between our store and home and gotten your favorite food. That usually enhances the experience. Otherwise, maybe it's online, in which case you're going to type an email, about 22 strokes, and you go, Candy, my thing ain't doing the thing. And she's going to go, oh, really? Could you take a quick picture or a video just to demonstrate what's going on so I can catalog the error in our error system and make sure it doesn't cross the threshold? Once I have that from you, I'm going to set it to reship. It'll reship basically within the day, and we'll get it to you out as fast as we can. Sorry about that. You're going to read that email and go, ooh, that's great customer service. I'm now going to drive and get some tacos, come back and eat them. That's usually the hassle-free warranty system we have. 25 steps? No, 22. 25 is too many. 22 steps. 22. My company gives a day-date Rolex after 10 years, 3 more to go. I've thought about that kind of stuff, and we're just not at a company that size that I think could justify that, but I think I love old traditions like that, like maybe a company ring or a watch, and I hope that someday we make that into a thing. I do love, I mean, it's pretty apparent with like the membership coins, like any tangible like thing over time, and just like these little, I don't know, I want to call them rewards, I don't know, mementos, I'm not sure. Like I saw I think there's a Jack in the Box, it's either Jack in the Box or Pizza Hut Rolex that they actually gave to like franchise owners that hit a certain level, and I just thought that was so cool because I love the expensiveness of the Rolex, but then to be like, wait, does that say KFC on it? Like, I think that's hilarious and a funny talking point. So, maybe if I ever find some kind of funny watch like that, I will, at a reasonable price, I would buy it. I like the stories. I like the I don't know, uniqueness of that kind of stuff. $10-year gold employee coin, real gold or silver. That'd be expensive. The person that makes these coins for us, they have a coin for every year someone works. So after you've been there for a year, you get a coin. After 2 years, and they're kind of more of a, well, I don't know if that's a true statement, but they might have more offices where you could display it, and then it's almost like seeing how long someone's worked there, where we could do that for our employees as well, but they don't really have a display, just like be in their pocket at home, which it could, but Yeah, we've done it for members and not so much the employees. We do other stuff for that kind of stuff. Rolex Dominoes. I think it is the Dominoes one that has that Rolex, which is I would love it if somehow it's like, yeah, you got to buy 100 of them, but we'll make an Aquarium Co-op Rolex. But then my brain goes, wait, 100 Rolexes, like that's stupid money. I'm sure we don't have that kind of stupid money. We got to launch like a hang on back or something else after this live. We don't have stupid money. Stupid money is all wrapped up in lights. Which, by the way, we've got, from what I see in the sales, we have between 3 and 4 weeks before we run out. We're already out of the 12-inch, but in general, between 3 and 4 weeks. So if the stars align, we might only be out for a couple weeks. Might be not so bad. Selling better than we could have thought, really. Why buy a diver's watch and be afraid to dip them arm deep in a freshwater tank? That would be silly. I sell watches myself, not in that price range. Customers not using them sucks. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I feel. They're meant to be used. That's my, like I have an Apple Watch too, and I take it in the ocean. I take it in the hot tub and all that. Like I bought this thing to do what it's supposed to do, and why just let it not being used out of fear? Like it's supposed to be able to do this. Let's make it do it. Yes, I definitely need a custom Stella Green Rolex. They won't say Aquarium Co-op on it, but there's a lot of, so the Rolex nerd in me that I'm gonna pass my time talking about Rolexes. I didn't know these existed till like a month and a half ago or something, or a month. And each one, like between the 60s and 70s, was hand painted, and so they're all slightly different grades of color, and they get cracked, and they're just they weren't popular, so a lot of them got destroyed, but they were made, and some of them have different languages for ambassadors and stuff like that. And lately, they've gotten just stupid expensive. But the fact that you can get some of them in that green that's kind of really glows like an Aquarium Co-op green, I was like, wow, that'd be a great watch just to have like a vintage Rolex that kind of had that, that Aquarium Co-op green to it would be a fun item. But, we'll see. Maybe I'll keep saving and we'll find a good deal at some point, Maybe if I save up long enough and the economy in the Rolex game tanks, maybe those two will come together. Did I ever get those gold leopard platies from Sergeant Tanks? I don't think I did. No. Do I like Starry Night cichlids? I do. Tropius dubosii are a fun fish. I've bred lots of them. Lots of them. This was my first time at a live chat. Had no idea there was so much talk about food and watches instead of keeping fish. Why is that? Well, Joy, we've done hundreds and hundreds of live streams, many, many hours, because they're at least 2 hours every time. And we spent roughly the first 90 minutes talking about fish disease, algae, fish, that kind of stuff. And then eventually I like to connect with people on a real level. And so I talk about things that I find interesting, like food. And I mean, I think over the years, I probably talked about watches 3 or 4 times ever. And someone asked me about the Rolex. And so the way my brain works is when someone asks me about something, I try to answer it honestly. And then the next thought that comes to my head, if it's related to that, I keep talking, and I'm here to entertain you. And so my job is to connect with wide audiences of people. And, maybe 2% of the people out there are into watches. And this week, this episode, they're going, oh, that was super interesting. I didn't know that about Corey. And then next week, it'll be something else. And then next week, they'll ask me about gaming. And the week after that, they'll ask me about music and the game. And after that. And so over a catalog of, let's say, 500 episodes, if the last 20 minutes of each, you learn a little bit more about me, you'll know a lot about me in aggregate and a company and that kind of stuff. And you'll know that, like, oh, Corey's talked about pea puffers in 500 episodes. He's talked about them in 442 of them. And so at some point, to make it, fun for myself, I want to talk about something other than pea puffers. And it's stimulating conversation, at least for my brain, to talk about more things. And a decent amount of people like it. And I think what happens long term, from what I can see, if I only ever talk about fish, you might be a lover of fish and you're new into it. But how you are today and how you are in 5 years are different. In 5 years, you're a fish keeper and you like fish and you want to hear some stuff, but you've heard a lot of stuff about fish and you might want to hear a story or you might want to hear about something. And so trying to retain people long term, think of it, my job is we met at a fish meeting. We both like fish, but it's my goal to be friends long term. So even though you just had a kid and you're going back to school and you're starting a new job and you've got fish tanks, you don't have time for all the fish stuff, but you might have it on in the background. You're listening while you're studying, or you're watching the kids or whatever you're doing, and you're going, hey, oh, he's talking about that. Okay, I didn't know Corey thought that about that. Interesting. Okay, moving on. So that's why the chat will evolve and move to hopefully keep people that have been here for many, many years participating interested. That's really the goal. So yeah. So hopefully you'll, maybe you rewatch this stream and you go, oh yeah, there was 90 minutes of talking about, fish and stuff. And then we kind of transitioned a little bit. I mean, my other option is I could just cut it to 90 minutes and not talk about this at all. There's that option. Could go longer too. But, I like to keep it easy and just go where the conversation goes. So, all right, I'm going to answer this last question and I'm going to call it, because I got dinner with Grandma today and nothing gets in the way of dinner with Grandma. So, Corey, I've got a blue-eyed albino Plecos to breed. When I put them in the grow-out tank, they all get fin rot. I've treated and changed water. What's happening? Could be you've got a bare bottom of tank. Sometimes that adds to bacteria loads, especially if the fish are on it. Sometimes the type of food you feed. Like we know that fin rot happens a ton with bettas if you're feeding them lots of like microworms and stuff, those kind of cultures, because they sit at the bottom and they sit in that. So probably something in that setup where you're moving them to is not ideal. You might need more mulm. You might need more gravel. You might need less light. You might need bigger, right? The tank maybe isn't digesting it well enough. It might be a different food. But that's part of the breeder game of like, why are they thriving here and I move them over here? And the thing we need to remember is the ecosystem is going to change. Just because you live at your home right now and you move to another city, your life will be different. What do you mean my windows face a different way from the sun? What do you mean there's not a local bakery? What do you mean the nearest, bank that I bank at is an hour away? What do you mean that they won't deliver here? What do you mean that the grocery store is not the one that I like? So even though it's the same, it is different. It's that ecosystem. And so, we would swear they're the same, but in practice, they will be different. And so it's our job to figure out what are those differences, close the gap, and get them to thrive. That's the game of breeding fish. We got them healthy enough to breed. Now we got to get them healthy enough to grow out. Two different things, You might have a couple that spends a long time trying to have a baby, and then you've got the whole other skill set of how to raise that baby. Not the same thing. And so that's what you're experiencing. You've made them. Now you got to learn to grow them. Two different activities, and a good breeder will be able to do both. So, all right. We will see you next Sunday. That's all I got, really. Next Sunday. I'll put out a video. I'll film some more. Spend some time with my tanks. Maybe you'll see what I'm doing day to day in the Facebook group. If not, hey, you see me a couple of times a week. That's good enough. And hopefully you'll be around. Someone said they were around for, memberships like 5 years. Or no, 50 months. So yeah, closing in on 5 years. But yes, Jamie McDonald's been around a long time. Heard a lot of stuff. Heard my different voices. Heard my up and my downs. All that. Seen me super in the hobby. Seen me out of the hobby. Seen me engaged. Seen me burned out. All of those. And still hangs around. So he must be having an okay time. I'm having an okay time, and maybe you'll have an okay time with me next Sunday. So I'm going to hit the done button, and we'll go visit Grandma. That's a good weekend. We'll see you next time.